Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our America's Got Talent reaction. This might end up being the last, normal audition show, and it's not really even that normal because there's no audience.
Yeah, it's super weird without the audience. I mean, there were some performances where it's like, oh man, it really feels like they filled up the room, like Brandon Leake tonight and his golden buzzer, who of course we're going to talk about. But
Yeah.
there are other performances where I was kind of like, man, it feels empty in here. And
Yeah.
even though I can tell that they are very talented, it still felt empty. Very strange.
And it's probably gonna feel weirder if it sounds like we're gonna have another audition show that might be people auditioning from home. I don't know how that's ultimately gonna work, but we do have our final golden buzzer with Brandon Leake. We'll talk about him, a few other notable acts as well. Michael Yo, Wesley Williams, Kenadi Dodds. There were some interesting talents tonight. You know, the Brothers Gage, for all the harmonica players out there.
I love them.
I go all over the place with harmonica players, but we'll go through everybody. But before we dive in, if you guys do like this video, give us a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any other coverage we've got coming up, because we have a lot.
Okay, so we're definitely going to start with Brandon Leake because, as he said, there's never been a poet on the show before. I have a soft spot for the poet. Matt is a poet. He's a published poet. I really love that kind of poetry that he's doing because that is something that Matt will talk a little more about, hopefully, is that he does poetry that's very relatable. And it's not sort of, because like when I first sort of heard about poetry in general, before I met Matt, it was a lot more, I just didn't get it. It was too wordy and too just out there that I didn't really know what anybody was saying and frilly words and whatever. And I'm an English person. I found it a little bit too just overwhelming, daunting, and not really that interesting. And then I met Matt, and Matt made poetry that was a lot more relatable, just like Brandon. So when Brandon went on, he's like, yeah, I'm a poet and I do stuff that's very, very relatable. So it reaches everybody. I was like, this is really cool. I like this a lot. And it's awesome that we're actually going to get a chance to see this performance.
I'm really excited about talking about Brandon. I feel like we have done these videos and written and discussed AGT for however long the show has really been on.
Yeah.
This is the first act I'm actually legitimately qualified to judge.
Yeah, you are.
I went to school for this. I've written a lot of poetry. I've published poetry. It's a very, very difficult thing to pull off well, because there is a very pretentious sort of perception as to what poetry is, where it is where a lot of people sort of think it is kind of what your initial first impression of poetry was, where people go up there and, you know, really ridiculous sort of over the top outfits and speak in this very almost Shakespearean way. And you know, it's 2020, and you know, even when I started getting into poetry, and that was a good 15, 20 years ago, it still was changing then. And it's really about, okay, how can you translate the message that is in your heart so that it comes down on the page and then comes out so that everyone else gets brought into your heart? And I think what Brandon does that's so effective is he's obviously rehearsed the performance of this a lot, and there were certain words that he would speak early on that you would have to kind of cling on to them because they would come back up, and sometimes you wouldn't even notice it when you first were hearing him speak. But he wove it together really, really intricately, and there was a great sense of diction. There was a great sense of, there was a little bit of rhyme, because you want it to be pleasing to hear in that way. You don't want it to be very sing-songy, because then it's just cheesy. But his performance was incredible. I think his story is something, and emotionally, I think that a lot of people can feel that concept of survivor's guilt, that concept of, you know, would it be like if you were still here. And it was touching. Like, I got really lost in it, because I don't hear spoken word poets, honestly, who are as good as he is that often.
He fully deserved that golden buzzer, and I'm really glad that he came and he did this for us, because it isn't something that we really get to experience. Poetry is not something that's very mainstream. And he's talking about something that is deeply personal. And, you know, we do get a lot of stories on the show in general about people's backstories or whatever, but their act isn't necessarily involved in such a personal story. And, you know, all of us have lost people out there.
Yeah.
So hearing him talk about that was something that really hit me right in my heart. And I love that about this performance. I am so glad he's going through.
I'm thrilled for the Golden Buzzer. I think it does a lot for Brandon, but I think even more so, I think it gives a little bit more of understanding and normalization to poetry itself, that I hope people watch the show and realize this is every bit of an art form as dance, as singing, as juggling on a unicycle, or any of these sort of things. This is right there with it, and I love that Howie, it seemed like Howie was the first person to stand, and it almost, he was. Validated it for the other judges, and he seemed to help to get the other judges even more on board. And I give Howie a hard time a lot on this show, but I really appreciate how he respected the medium. I don't know what America's going to think about this.
I really hope that they all felt what we felt watching him. I mean, like I said at the beginning of this video, there was a lot of performances that, even though you could tell that there was talent there, it still felt like the auditorium was empty. That did not feel like that with Brandon, who was standing in one spot, not working the stage with a giant unicycle and juggling knives, who we'll get to as well.
Yeah, I know.
But it's incredible to me that he is filling the auditorium the way that he is with his words. And that's, I really do hope that everyone watching is going to really connect with him, because he's really special.
I loved every second of it. I could have listened to him do this for another 20 minutes if his material was right there, like what we saw tonight. I know we have other acts that we got to get to. I can keep talking about Brandon for a long while still, but he's one of my favorite acts of the season right now. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but he was my favorite of the night.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Wesley here, because we've already mentioned him a couple of times. I am not super up to date on Britain's Got Talent this season. Usually I try to watch it more, but hasn't happened so much as of late, so this was the first time I've seen him. He's legit really good at what he does. I get very anxious watching unicyclists sometimes, because I'm constantly afraid they're going to fall off.
Yeah, and there was a couple times, not just on the really tall one, but on the medium one, where I saw a look on his face like he was just like, whoa, and I was like, okay, I'm out on this act. Like, if he isn't confident and he doesn't have confidence in his face, then the act doesn't work. He has to have that. Now, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, because he was on Britain's Got Talent. Simon was like, oh man, we're in for a treat. This guy is something else. And then he came on and he was like, okay, he's really nervous. I can tell. I've seen him before. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do next, because the thing I need from him is confidence. And if he doesn't have it next time, then I don't know.
I think he probably was one of the people most thrown off by not having an audience, because he probably feeds a lot on that energy. And
for sure,
when you do an act like that, which I have the balance of probably someone 30 years younger than me. Like, I have terrible balance. I can barely walk over like a balance beam. I almost forgot what it was called.
Oh, I can't do any of that. I have the worst. Everything I touch drops. Everywhere I go, I fall. So, you know, kudos to him for being able to do that, because I can barely even just walk.
Yeah, I have immense... Okay, you can walk. I have immense respect.
Oh, sometimes. You've watched me fall up the stairs before.
Well, okay, we've all done that.
Yeah.
Now, I have a lot of respect for what he does. I could never do the unicycle, let alone juggle while also on it. I am excited to see what he does next. I just think there's always at least creativity and variety here.
Yeah.
I appreciate that about him, and I appreciate that with this show. We at least had some acts we don't see on America's Got Talent all that often.
Although we have seen every single kid musician in this particular episode. We saw guitar playing, we saw harmonica playing, we saw piano playing, we saw drums. We saw it all tonight. It was crazy how many young musicians were on.
All right, let me get my tinfoil hat. I have a theory about this.
All right, let's have it.
I have a feeling, producers in America's Got Talent at this point, they were reading the room. They're knowing what's going on in the world, how things are spreading. They've already slowly dissolved away their audience. I think they probably were aware that there was a chance that they weren't going to get to finish the auditions in person, and I think they know that they want to have those kids there for that moment where they get to see the judges and they get to sort of make that dream come true. And this is why I think kids get the golden buzzers a lot, because you get sort of that wondrous moment of joy from them, and sometimes if you're older you internalize things a little bit more. I think they were just like, well, let's throw all the kid acts on there before everybody gets shut down.
So I want to talk about the Brothers Gage, and I know not everyone loves harmonica stuff, but my father's a harmonica player, and I grew up with the harmonica. I love the harmonica. So usually I'm pretty critical of people that are playing the harmonica. You need to be really good, because if you're not as good as my dad, then I don't care to listen. These guys are really, really good.
They're great at what they do, and I am a bad harmonica player. Like, I played the harmonica once when I was, like, in the 8th grade, and I did it for, like, a month. I could do, like, 8 different notes, but they were all terrible. I respect what they do. I think they're very, very good. Just, to me, my favorite acts with the harmonica there was an act, I think, all the way back on the first season where you had, like, a guitarist and a harmonica. Like, I like harmonica more mixed in with some other musical instruments, so there's a little bit more variety, because I saw how good they are. I don't know if they're going to do something that's going to top it for me, but I am willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. I will see. Like, I think you're probably a bigger fan of them than I am.
Yeah,
but
I'm a big fan. I really enjoyed them. I felt that they filled the room. They used the entire stage, which is really cool. And, I can't wait to see what they do next. I really like them. And they're very young to be able to play harmonica like that. They really wailed on those things. Really good job.
Yeah, I will give them all the credit in the world for being able to, because there are very few things that are perceived as cool about the harmonica, and when you're that age, you probably want to do things, and I say this as someone who played the saxophone and was brutally made fun of in a lot of middle school, so I understand playing a musical instrument, not always the hippest thing to do. Good on you guys for sticking with it.
Yeah, I mean, there, like I said, there was a lot. I mean, there was the cello tonight, too. Oh, my goodness. There was, I don't even know, man.
There was so much of that. And, in Kenadi Dodds, she played a guitar. She was, I guess, kind of like adjacent, but she was the singer-songwriter, prospective country singer who, big surprise, she wants to go to Nashville, as do all country singers. It is that dream, and I think she did a very good job of showing off her talent, showing off, okay, she is someone who's got some chops. I think she's still pretty raw. I think her voice is still going to improve a little bit moving forward. But I do like the fact that her song made sense for her and it was relatable to her. I found her to be very, very likable, and you can see how much it meant to her to be doing that. And it's gonna be tricky because there's a lot of singers.
And there's a lot of young singers. Like this year especially is so stacked with young performers and young singers. So it's going to be very interesting to sort of see how it goes, because there are some other singers that have bigger voices than her, but then on her side, she's also writing her stuff and singing her stuff and playing guitar. I mean, she has a lot going on that the other singers don't have. So it's going to be very interesting to see where she lands.
The only other person who I think is a particularly notable standout to me is, and this is fairly early on, is Michael Yo, a comedian who, he's got some history being on TV already. I didn't know exactly what to expect from him at first, because I sort of think if you get on TV that much and you're just interviewing people, you get kind of conditioned to a very specific way of performing. I found this to be really, really funny. I thought the comparisons between people his age and people who are much younger, I thought a lot of it worked, and maybe it's because I'm kind of like in the middle of those two age ranges he talks about, so it's like I can kind of relate to a little bit of both of them.
He was funny, but we did just see this basically the same sort of thing. I guess it was last week with Ty, and he was way funnier. So it's tough. Again, there's a lot of really good comedians that are kind of in that similar thing about being, sort of in their 30s and 40s and kind of talking about that. I mean, we had another comedian tonight doing the same sort of thing. So it's tough this season for that. And just so that if anyone's wondering why we're not talking about Shevon, it's because we already talked about Shevon. We have another video. We'll link it for you below. Yeah. She's so good that we decided that we were going to do a video all about her when she had the early release. She is phenomenal. Yeah,
I love Shevon. She's probably my second favorite act overall of the night.
It's incredible.
I love Brandon. It's
Brandon.
It's a weird episode of the show, really, without the audience and a lot of acts that were just kind of all over the map. But I'm interested to see where things go. We're finding out more and more about how the show's going to work moving forward. Mm-hmm. Seems like they're just doing one judge cut show, and that there may be more live shows. We'll see.
They need to figure something out, because I do not want to watch Wesley Williams unicycling in his backyard. Like, it's not really going to work out. Like, there are some acts that just, I don't know how this works.
I have an idea, though. If you're Wesley Williams, you get up on that big old unicycle, and then you jump from the top of your unicycle into your neighbor's pool. That will be one of the greatest performances in AGT history, until the neighbors call and have you pulled away for trespassing.
Yeah, that just feels like that's turning into some sort of college movie or something.
I don't. Yeah, it seems like it all could go badly. But anyway, what did you guys think about America's Got Talent tonight? Let us know all your thoughts in the comments. And if you did like this video, give us a like, subscribe, and support us further by checking the link in the description to the store. And we'll see you here next time.